meeting to order at 6:02 PM. Everyone stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we never know if Foreman here or not.
Yeah.
So I'd like to open the workshop part of the meeting. This is a workshop to clarify, not for any one specific group or purpose, but the select board has in front of it a contract that we will be presenting at town hall to discuss the structural integrity of Holy Angels and what steps may or may not be taken to bring it up to 2025 or 2026 code. I called in Mike Marchand, who's on his way. We have John Achu, Mike Antonellis, and Lieutenant Dan Lazar, who's joining us remotely. For those of you who don't know, Dan is an engineer and this is his specialty. So really what we're looking at is what they feel, but if they can offer any suggestions, I don't think anyone on the board is specifically qualified to do this.
Chair, we also have Dennis Westgate facility, PPW
Oh, good.
facilities.
Oh, I see the DW now. Yeah, time to get the old eyes checked. Okay, so I don't know who wants to start or how best to handle this. I know I was in the building. It had been a long time since I was in the building. I went in the building yesterday with John Achu and Mike Marchand and took a good look at it. I don't know if people are aware, there is not one electrical wire, one piece of plumbing, one heat. The building has, unfortunately, it really broke my heart to see it's been cannibalized. There are leaks in the roof. There is mold growing on almost every surface. There is asbestos tile. But John, could you give us if you'd like to come forward, and Michael, if you want to join him as well, since you two work hand in hand.
Were you guys in the building yesterday as well? Because,
Not yesterday, but I've been.
yeah, I wasn't aware that, because I had been in there recently and I saw a very different thing. So I guess it's just, but we're not professionals. So I guess that's why we want to do the study, right? 'Cause-
Well, and yeah, because obviously what you saw, well, I don't see how we saw two very different things. But
It
go
was
ahead.
clearly a gutted building, right? Like,
Well-
there's no doubt about that. But did you see active leaking from the roof?
Well, it wasn't raining yesterday, but
Yeah.
there's stains and there's water. I mean, it has
'Cause
been
it had
leaking.
leaked, yeah, and then they repaired it.
But regardless, it's very different than when we got the study in 19. It's a whole different building than now because of,
It
the animals that have come in and the damage that has been done. So we'll talk to the professionals.
Yeah. But it's not that different than in 2019 because it was gutted. Prior to that.
Mike Antonellis, Director of Land
Yeah.
Use Inspection Services. John H. Ewer, the local inspector.
Right.
Where would you like us?
We have from Duca Criterium Engineers, we have a proposal. Do you think it's appropriate? I mean, there's been a lot of talk. And there was even an email saying, when can we get an occupancy permit? And I don't think we're anywhere near that, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Certainly.
What do you see as the building needing, and in regards to the cost estimate that we will be presenting at town meeting in May? What's your opinion?
I mean, as far as the possible, your new revised estimate we have before you is obviously probably a lot more palatable than the first time. So,
Definitely, but scope of work. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you, as two professionals in the building trades? Obviously, Brett and I have two very different opinions.
The only thing, I mean, I couldn't comment on, and John can't comment on, what it looked like in 2019.
No.
You know,
I was in there.
But different
Yes.
codes today versus 18 or 19.
No, Is it ready for an occupancy permit for any use? No, it's very much not. So there would need to be a significant amount of work done, which I think we would identify a lot of that work through going forward with a study like this.
Right.
The only thing about this study or this scope of work versus the former scope of work that you had obviously this has been reduced greatly. The intent of, it seems like this scope is to, really identify those big ticket items, HVAC, uh, structural stabilization for future use as assembly use, building, mechanical and electrical systems, ADA accessibility and fire protection. Those are sort of the big
Right.
ticket items that we'll be looking for. And then above that, there was a removal of any sort of looking into, cabinetry or any of those sort of like, I guess, built suite of items that you would have for like a new tenant of any kind, right? They would identify their use that they would need within the building.
right.
So what you would look, if I'm understanding this correctly, and hopefully Doug has the same understanding, is that we're looking to provide a baseline of suitability for somebody to move in, and then whoever that somebody is, they might do their own improvements, and then that would require other permits and things like that. So what you're, and that was obviously a huge, much larger cost, for closer to like $100,000 with that. And that was,
Yeah,
that was everything included, right? That was soup to nuts. And this is more basic. So I think the intent of this document is to inform not only you as the select board, but the town at town meeting, what it's going to take to bring it up to some level to that would get it close to getting the certificate of occupancy that
Right.
you mentioned. Yeah.
Right, and that's really my purpose in calling the workshop is, I'm not a building inspector, 34 years living with a GC. I know just enough to be dangerous, but am I correct that today's code as it stands right now, you cannot use oil or gas, you need to do electric and heat pumps, am I correct, John?
Not entirely for a commercial building. I think you can still use gas.
Can you?
I don't-
Okay, that's.
I know you can in residential.
Right,
You can't use oil anymore.
no,
And the systems that are in the building wouldn't be serviceable anyways,
right,
the oil fired stuff that's there. And the way the building sits now, anything you do in there, you need to meet the new energy code, so you'd be replacing the systems anyways.
Mhm. And the energy codes, we need new windows? I mean, more than likely, we're just asking opinions, I'm not gonna hold anybody to it.
The way it reads, I think you can replace one window. After that, you need to have all of the windows meet code.
Okay. And is code triple pane right now? I don't know commercial, I know residential.
Depends on the energy rating of the building. You can, if you do more insulation, you can change up the windows a little bit.
Okay.
It depends on the whole system.
Okay, when you saw the building yesterday, what was your opinion? Just professionally,
Looks like it needs a gut and a redo.
so then, and we, that triggers all the new laws in 2025, if not 2026.
Yep.
And building code changes almost on a yearly basis, if not more frequently for reasons, am I correct?
Every 6 years there's changes.
Okay.
But there are minor tweaks in between with the big changes every 6.
Okay, when was the last big change?
It will be in July this year.
Okay, well, that's good, and we're good for another 6. So, okay. I know Mike Marshall, but Maureen, do you have questions?
Well, I was just
Okay,
gonna
yeah.
ask, did you notice any lead asbestos?
Tile in the basement looks to be asbestos. It's tough to tell on the paint just from visual, but I'm sure there's lead paint in there.
Mold,
Lots of mold.
and that all has to be remediated.
Yep.
So what's that entail, encapsulating the whole building and going in and cleaning it all up?
The lead either removed or encapsulated, the asbestos tile and the mastic on the upper floor looked like it was asbestos. That would have to be remediated. As soon as you start doing anything except just going over it, you need to take it out.
I'd like, Mike Marsham was explaining yesterday that with ADA code, we'll need an elevator and for it to be sprinkled, but he's on his way. Mr. Lazar, do you have comments, questions, suggestions? Have you seen the estimate? I mean, it is a very basic estimate, but I think it's necessary, but we need to know how best to present this to town meeting so we can start to get that building underway to be rehabbed.
So I actually went and walked the building with John later in the afternoon, I think an hour or two after you two had gone
Okay.
with Mike. I'm going to basically say the same thing that John said. I mean, the building it looks like it's, a very intact and reusable building. It can go through an adaptive reuse, but with the current conditions and not being occupied for as long as it's been, it would be a complete, full um, renovation of that building. Probably, as John had alluded to, it's probably going to be, by the time you do all the remediation work you need to do for all those legacy hazmat materials, which are very commonly, remediated from buildings, whether it's mold, lead, or asbestos, floor tile, or mastic in windows or on flooring systems. Um, got to be done, and that does add some costs. And I think you also mentioned, like, from an accessibility standpoint, the building was permitted, I think, temporarily as a town hall. I can go back a little bit of the history if I can remember it correctly. We probably can do a little more research to figure it out, but it was used, I believe, under a temporary occupancy permit where it housed the town hall as a swing space during construction for the town hall. So that would be something that would have to be essentially the building is its last known use was a church. So you're going to change within a sub-use group of assembly, and that will trigger the accessibility, the full modern fire protection. It's going to trip the energy code requirement, which is the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code. And Upton is a stretch code community. So we're going to get roped into, and it's every project, not just this project, but you're going to have a situation where we have to choose very efficient systems to balance the energy requirements as it relates to climate initiatives also. So yeah, there's quite a bit of work. This isn't a small endeavor to try to restore it back to what it was before. I think it's the demolition work that was done in there. I think I also can give a little feedback too, was back when for a short time period was privately owned. They had done some what they call destructive testing, which means they cut open some walls and spaces to see what the interior structure looks like. Probably to do things, they have to look at some things structurally to see it and understand it to propose changes. I will have to say, John and I walked the majority of the building. It didn't go up into any of the attic spaces, and there's a way to get up through the bell tower to see that. But it didn't appear to be any really sizable water damage. But yeah, there's been leaks over the years that have damaged most of those interior surfaces, which again, they're probably at a situation where it'd be difficult to try to reuse or restore those. You're probably just at a point where it'd be most likely be removed. So it would be a big project to undertake it, to try to get it back to an assembly use, which would be probably an A2 or A3, depending on how you want to go and do that. So like I said, you're going to run into a lot of the triggers as it relates to fire accessibility and energy. So it's
Yeah,
a
I don't know,
sizable
have you
sizable
seen,
project.
sorry. Have you seen, so the scope of services includes structural stabilization for future uses in assembly space, building, mechanical and electrical systems, ADA accessibility, fire sprinklers, and protection, including an invasive structural analysis. And then it says existing conditions, estimated cost, bleh, I'm having a day, project costs. I know this is kind of your field of expertise. This is what you do for a living. Do you think there is anything to determine the viability of this building and how we move forward with it? Is there anything in your professional opinion that you would add to that scope of services?
I would actually add that I think the most significant thing about Holy Angels is it is one of the 3 most significant buildings in the historic district submission, which has been through the State Historic Preservation Office part of things. there's a lot of avenues to be explored. I know that I had gone to Historic Commission last year as a citizen, asking them to look at, working with other town boards to start the process of getting that recognition so it can be eligible for federal tax credits, which would apply to the building and to the site. Those would be significant offsets to help fund a restoration. And the neat thing about, I think that the interesting opportunity about Holy Angels is on the inside of the building, I think you would have complete freedom to do what you would want to do if you were the owner and doing a renovation. The only thing you're doing on the exterior is trying to preserve it to match what it's looked like since its original construction, which is pretty accurately the same that it is today. So I think that's part and parcel. And there are some provisions in historic buildings, if you get that recognition, at least from the State Historic Preservation Office, to get some leeways to deal with, getting some relief on some code items. But the core items we talked about, you're not going to get much relief from. You may be able to justify avoiding an elevator. It may not really be something you want to do that would want to be done for a building like that. So either way, I think it's a pretty sizable project. And as it fits into our downtown redevelopment, our new zoning, which has mixed use and a lot more freedom and flexibility, I think that's that historic provision and that new zoning provides for, and really essentially what the building industry calls an adaptive reuse of the building. And there's a tremendous number of good examples throughout the Northeast, and specifically the Boston Metro, because of how many churches, Catholic churches, were actually taken out of the diocese back in the early 2000s as they consolidated. And there's been some fantastic projects to look at. And I know you and I have spoken about, look at what's gone on in Uxbridge, where they did a simple project in the basement of, I think it's a Unitarian church on Main Street, the Honeysuckle Cafe. So there's little examples of, kind of where things can head with things like this. But the current state of the building right now, it needs a complete rehabilitation done to it to do those things. And I think in that scope of services, we would be foolish not to understand that, because a 20% tax credit is pretty sizable on a project, and there's really no real restrictions other than just keeping the appearance on the outside. Doesn't mean you couldn't attach an addition to it and say, if you had an ability to put, an ability to expand the building with an opportunity that could play out in that format. So I think that's a really important part to this.
I think we all are in agreement. We need to save it. We want to save it. It should be saved. I think it's just, unfortunately, we did this it was ordered in 18 or 19 and nothing happened. And I think it just needs to be updated. But, I just want everyone to understand the steps we have to go through to save the building, to get the building into a habitable use. And I don't want there to be any confusion. And at the end of the day, it's not our call. We put this on town meeting floor, and it's the voters.
The other
But
thing,
I want to know how best to put it before them so we get the funding, so we can see what we can do. That really was my purpose in this meeting, in this workshop, was, so the tax credits is something we could bring up, like, hey, we need to study this because we are eligible for X, Y, and Z.
yeah, because at the end of the day, it's going to be an expensive endeavor. So you got to, that whole tax credit is an opportunity to start helping inform, the finances of making a project viable. And like I said, we talked about the other competing priorities like energy and like the life safety and accessibility that you're going to have to do, just because that's the standard of care moving forward with buildings, whether they're 150 years old or brand new, doesn't really matter. I think that's one of the biggest opportunities. And the other thing to mention too is there wasn't already done a structural report, so you wouldn't want to have that duplicated. You want them just to revalidate work that's already been done from a study. I know it's probably be a different engineer, but again, they don't have to redo things that have already been documented and certified by another design professional.
Right, we did hire the same engineer company for that. Exclusive reason saying we needed it updated, so.
I think one last thing, and I'll not bring anything else up, but I think one of the most important things with building projects is really the approval and permitting process. And the more that the town can work to get things so the permitting wouldn't be complicated and complex, whether it's the historic, realizing historic provisions of the building, because how it contributes to our historic district, and then also anything related to internal town boards and committees that can work together with Mike's department loose on as it relates to what we can do to make it clear to people who want to invest and redevelop the building, to make that not be seen as a costly barrier.
Through the chair, that last part is being addressed through BSC Group Engineering, who's working with EDC currently on
Okay.
evaluating concept scenarios over there. So Dan, I should have a permitting analysis scenario done through BSC Group, which will show the potential reuse of Holy Angels and show all the permitting that will be necessary.
That's great.
Is there any way we could get any kind of a cost estimate that we could present to town meeting?
Any cost estimate I get from that group there'll be a large margin of error. Like it'll be very high level. It won't be very detailed.
It won't.
Yeah, it'd be based on like per square foot market cost of things, so we wouldn't without having a proposed floor plans and
Here.
specific plans, we would have to, it would just be a very general cost. You know what I mean? So,
Might do more harm than good.
and that, I don't,
Hey, Mike, I can jump in on this. I think to do that, like I said, the consultants that are currently working with us can probably do just a rough order of magnitude, or what they call a ROM cost. They can be dangerous because they could cover, they don't do a good job going deeper on things that are real risks or unforeseens. So you tend to get these round numbers that it gets you in the right ballpark, but you still may be off by a sizable amount of dollars to do something. I think more importantly, Mike, you mentioned it too, is that not having a clear program can be really costly. You don't want to spend money on a core and shell renovation and then turn around and have to renovate it again for a pretty sizable amount of money and change some of the things you did just to make it a habitable building.
And Madam Chair, if I can just chime in on a couple things. One, reason why we pulled together this scope of work was to be able to identify and rather sort than the large sort of ballpark figure that BSC, get a better understanding as far as what is needed to stabilize the building. General numbers, HVAC, fire suppression, ADA access, all that structure. One thing that is missing from this is that we need, and this is after talking to Dennis today, he had also been in yesterday, observed that he was of the opinion that there are active leaks, that we also need and sort of an immediate action plan as far as if there's ceiling, roof work, that to close up any intrusions to make sure that the envelope itself is exactly tight, because some of these other things are gonna take time.
Yes.
The town does own the buildings. There's procurement requirements that we do have to follow, different procurement laws, including the fact that if the town was going to retain ownership and lease, we still have to go out to RFP, that the use as a performing arts center, that's not something we can just decide. We have to go through a formal RFP process and solicit proposals. They may be the only one, but those are still processes that we have to go through, advertise and solicit. So you have the immediate issue as far as we have gaps in the building. You know, as anyone that was in the basement, you can see daylight easily. And you have some active leaks. They may not be, they may have been for the most part addressed when we patched the roof. That was a patch job. You know, if we're talking about the building is still going to be there in this current condition in a year, we would also need to add what are immediate building envelope repairs that need to be done to make sure that we don't make the structure worse if it just sat there. That, and sort of looking through and thinking about the conversation, is a specific deliverable that we should have them prepare.
Yes, we should. I mean, I know when I was there, there were holes in the existing doors that honestly people could crawl through. You know, you see daylight a lot, and we've had issues with people in there before, and we don't need that. We don't need the liability. I'm sure there's a couple of critters in there somewhere. Brett, do you have questions? Comments?
You know, I think it's all pretty self-evident. We've talked about all of this stuff before, right? Like the building needs a lot of work and we just need the experts. So I think the question is, a couple of things I would point out. One is we're talking about sort of a rough order of magnitude.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying for today, I'm saying the structural analysis that was done in 2019, which is we need to have it updated. Clearly, that's what we're talking about. That
Yes.
needs to be done. In 2019, they provided a very rough estimate for major renovation of this building, including all systems, would be $1.5 million. And again, that is very dependent on the quality of finishes and materials chosen. That's a quote. I'm looking at the structural analysis that was done in 2019 that we paid for with the study. I'm not making anything up, right?
Yeah.
So in 2019, that very rough order of magnitude estimate, plus or minus 50% kind of thing, right, was $1.5 million. So in the past 5 years, a lot of things have changed. Building code has changed. Environmental requirements have changed. All sorts of things have changed. Prices have gone up clearly. So what does 1.5 million in 2019 turn into in 2025? For me, I would like, so when we go to town meeting to ask for some sort of structural analysis, I would like to get back an updated version of that rough order of magnitude number,
Yes.
right?
I don't think we can present this. This is kind of why we're here. I don't think we can go to town meeting and say, hey, guess what? We studied it in 1819. We approved the money. We didn't do anything. Or nothing happened. Whatever happened. And now we want to do it again. Yeah, I've been here long enough. People are going to say, why? So yes, we need to say, look, this is, you know, but we need some money to get the study, to get the new number.
And
I don't know, are you asking, can, and I'm sorry. Duca? I'm gonna kill the name. The engineers, the company we hired before, and the company we're hiring now, you're asking, can they do a real rough for town meeting? An escalated order of magnitude? Or no?
I don't.
Am I
not for
misunderstanding?
this- Not for this town meeting. I'm just saying include
Okay.
that in the scope of work.
Yes,
That's all right. So
okay,
I think and the reason I mention that is because what we talked about in terms of that whole process,
Mhm.
right, is, and this is what we need to validate, because I'm not like there's 20 of us in here, let's all figure it out, right? But I think what we talked about was, let's do this analysis,
Mhm.
which we have this scope of work for.
Mhm.
And what we as a board expect to get out of this
right,
is some clarity and detail around the costs
Mhm.
for making the building inhabitable.
right,
Not necessarily an occupancy permit, not necessarily all the finishes and all that, but we want to have a general cost. Is it going to be, is this $1.5 million? Is it $2.5 million? Is it $2 million? Is it $2.25 million? Whatever that number is, because once we have that number and say, we can go to town meeting and say, in the fall,
Mhm.
and say, if we wanted to, right? What do? We ask for 20% of that approximate cost to do the sort of building study and feasibility, to do a feasibility study. It's like we did with the DPW, right?
Exactly.
We spent a little bit of money to get a bunch of plan and information, and we figured out, okay, the DPW is gonna cost X amount of dollars. Now we have to go ask town meeting for 20% of the full cost to get the feasibility, the design and all that.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think the process is ask for a little bit of money now and tell people when we come back in the fall, you first you have the opportunity to vote on this. If you don't want to do this, then it's just dead in the water, right? But it's $35,000. I think finance committee would support it because we can use the money that was for the downtown renovation to reallocate to do this. So it's really short money. It's not new money that the taxpayers have to vote.
Not a ton.
Not a ton. So we do that. If the voters approve this,
Mhm.
we commit to them to come back in the fall
Right.
and ask them for whatever it might be, 20% of whatever that new number is. If it's $2 million, then it's whatever, $400,000 to get the detailed plans for renovating Holy Angels. And that will be their opportunity to vote to preserve the building or not. So that's what I see as the process and the information we've got.
I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page and understanding, the depth that, unfortunately, it's not the same as 19. The building codes, I only know the residential and I don't know commercial. But I know there are a lot of older builders leaving the industry because it's so expensive to build. It's crazy. That's before anybody tariffs the Canadian lumber, which we hope doesn't happen.
And I think that's,
I
I
think
think
so I
that's,
just-
is that the process that?
I think that's the process, but looking at this, so adding the ROM into the scope is very important. That wasn't there before.
Exactly.
And that's one of
That's
the reasons we're here
like,
today.
They don't need to, like, they took out, not included in the cost estimate, or custom specialty interior finishes, upgrades, windows, doors, cabinets,
Okay,
appliances,
yeah.
kitchens,
No,
the commercial
no,
kitchen and all
no,
that.
no,
Like that, okay, take that out. But
yes.
what I would like is still a number, a rough order of magnitude number that, to your point, takes, what's a market rate for whatever? And I do want to I'd like to have a number for a custom kitchen down there, and we can use a number like we did, just use the
Well-
number for the community center,
I think
As an
we
option.
could,
right, as an
the
option.
community center isn't all that old. I think we can say to the people,
Right. If
to
put a
the
kitchen
voters,
in,
hey, look,
Right.
this is what it costs for the commercial kitchen in the community center.
Right.
It's a year or two later,
It's gonna be
everything
more,
has gone up a
different,
little bit
right.
more.
Might
This
be more,
is
might be
a
less, but
fabulous guesstimate without paying an expert. Yes,
Exactly.
please.
agreed.
And if you want to dive into a kitchen, you're talking about downstairs, then you're talking about access, handicapped access.
Of course.
So you can't do anything down there. But you could leave the downstairs alone as far as access and just focus on upstairs.
I mean, I think I think that's a good point of clarification, because I think what we expect back is full usability of the building.
I think.
Like, I want to get an estimate that assumes accessibility for the lower level and the main level, or whatever is required, including putting in a commercial kitchen downstairs, because I think whatever the reuse is, whoever occupies that building, there was a commercial kitchen there.
Yes.
It's an assembly space. Presumably you want to host events and activities. I think it's reasonable to assume, us as a town, that if we're going to invest in renovating this building, we want to have a commercial kitchen in there.
And the one
and
in
it
the
needs to be
community center
accessible.
is well used, yes.
And
it
the one in the
needs to be
community center is
accessible.
well used, and they're growing, and the programming is increasing. There's a lot of demand for these types of services and capabilities. And it's a great way for us to reuse and revitalize this historic gem in the center of our town.
And I'd like to build for the future, not just today,
Exactly,
with an eye towards expansion.
totally.
Chief Marchand, now that you're here, what can you tell us about fire suppression, or your thoughts on Holy Angels and what you saw yesterday, other than we discovered, unfortunately, there's still oil tanks there?
I mean, the building has a presence of, historic value to me, in the center of town. I mean, the building would have to be bring up to all current codes for every HVAC, handicap access. I don't think you can say we're not gonna use the downstairs, we're gonna use the upstairs, in a public building. So you're talking elevator. So as far as fire suppression, you're looking at, full sprinkler system, riser, a separate main, two separate mains. There's a lot to it, this thing, because of the use you're intending to use it for, with people in this codes for. Step one with that building, I don't know, I missed part of your conversation here, but step one is, I'm a basic guy and common sense guy. I would want a structural engineer to tell me to look at that building, look at the damage that's been done to it because it's been unheated and a lot of damage has been occurring to this place. If the building's structurally sound enough to go forward with what we want to plan. So is the foundation, is the beams, is the roof, I think a structural analysis, I'm not an engineer, I've never renovated an old building like that. Dealt with my old little crappy house, right? And I know what's involved with that on trees for part of the walls, in the walls. So I think a structural engineer really has to look at that building.
Yeah.
And to see what has occurred from having no heat, having no, the roof basically with water pouring in on it. The damage that's been done. To look at that, to see if you can even move forward before you start to develop plans to do what you think you want to do with it. If the foundation's bad and the structural beams, the frame of the thing is bad, you're behind the eight ball from day one. And then you're talking even more millions to try to get that back up in place. You have some unique things that you're at 8 feet from a major riverway, 8 feet. Your oil tanks are 8 to 10 feet away from that bank. That is a flood zone back there. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen it under 4 or 6 feet of water back there myself personally. And the water up to Grove Street. So there's some things to take into consideration dealing with that. But first is the building structurally sound enough to do what you want? And that includes, that doesn't, mean walking around and look at it and think it's from do the foundation. That's an engineer that's gonna say that foundation is gonna hold up this building. These beams are not rotted to the point, I was pointing out to Laura and John the other day, what's underneath these columns? These columns are just an ornate thing. Is there a rotted out beam underneath these columns that are holding up the front of it? Is the steeple still safe? We've had churches where they've had to remove the steeples because of the weight of the steeple itself was a bearing thing on the building, so they couldn't move forward with it. So that to me would be the step one thing, is to look at that structurally. Is a structural engineer gonna look at that thing and say, hey, I imagine if you put, I wouldn't even want to set up a scale or a surveying thing to see whether the thing's tipped to the left, right, back, or whatever. That's what deal with those buildings. I think the foundation and the frame of the thing is, needs to be looked at first.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the scope, Mike, but one of it specifically says an invasive structural analysis. So
Yeah.
that is step one.
So that's part of the 30.
That's part of the,
Part of
yeah.
35,000.
And actually, for those that don't know, we're gonna request, because we don't get to do anything, till the town votes on it. And I love to say it a million times. We're gonna take the requested $25,000 that we looked at to bury the wires in town, and Mass Electric saw fit to ignore us. So it's obviously not happening. We're gonna take 25,000 and ask that the 25,000 be applied to this. And then the end result is, without me looking at, maybe 9 to 11,000. I do have the number in front of me, but as I said, I think Laura needs new glasses. So, yeah, it's 34,825, so it will be less than 10,000 to bring the study up to date.
It
The
includes
structural.
the structural state, so it's gonna provide a cost estimate to transform the structure for public use, limited to the following building system. So to your point, structural stabilization for future use as an assembly space. So that's included in this detailed estimate. Building, mechanical, and electrical systems. So everything you were talking about with all the HVAC, the electric, the sprinklers, everything that needs to go in there is going to be included in this estimate. ADA accessibility, to your point, right, for both floors, not just for one floor, for the whole building to be used as an assembly space, going to be included. Fire sprinklers and protection are going to be included in this scope of work for the $35,000. We're going to get an estimate back from them that says, here's what it would cost, here's an estimate of cost for all these different things. And then we come back in the fall and say, here's the total estimate. If you want to renovate the church and renovate the building for future use, here's what we have to ask for. Let's call it, if it's going to be, I'm going to make up a number, $2 million. It was 1.5 in 2019. If it's $2 million or more, whatever it is, we ask for 20% of that in the fall. That estimate, that money is then used for a detailed design that has the finishes, all the different benches, the design, the layout, what it's going to look like, the paint colors, etc. That's what we do in the fall. But this analysis includes everything I just described. And the invasive structural analysis and the assessment of existing condition. The other thing I would add is that just for this group, because I think it's useful to ground us in sort of the reality. So in 2019, since 2019, to your point, there was a roof leak. So there was water getting into the building. It's been 6 years unoccupied. So a lot can change and happen. The building's been there for 177 years. So whatever's happened, I don't know, but it's been 6 years since they did this assessment. But when they did the assessment, this is from the engineers, not my words. Overall, we consider this building to be structurally sound. We found some evidence of deterioration in parts of the framing in contact with the soil on the lower level. However, that is not significant and does not compromise the overall structural soundness at this time. Some repairs would be needed in these areas if an extensive renovation or conversion to a different use was undertaken. This is the important part I wanted to get to. The approximate live load capacity for the first floor is 65 pounds per square foot. That capacity is typical for a building of this age and construction type. However, if this building was renovated and used for assembly purposes, a theater, a restaurant, or what have you, it is likely that the required first floor live load capacity would be 100 pounds per square foot. Therefore, some reinforcement would be needed. So this new estimate will include the cost estimate to do that reinforcement because we're assuming that it's going to be an assembly space. So while it's structurally sound and it's not going to fall down, it's been there 177 years, there may be some structural reinforcement needed to increase the strength of that floor for the new use. That will be included in what we get back as part of this engineering analysis, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, Tom.
thank you.
Relative to back to the handicap access, you talk about the 2 floors. A lot of churches, they're high inside. They put loft areas up above with stores and shops, essentially making a third floor, a half of a third floor. So what you're considering now would preclude that. You wouldn't be able to do that. Your structural analysis would have to take that into account. Your ADA would have to take that into account and so forth. So you would, if you don't do it now, then, you might have a problem trying to add even a half of a third floor.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't get the sense that there is a notion or an appetite to try to investigate adding a third floor in that big, high open space. I think the idea is to keep that height and open space as it is. I mean, there's that little loft there now, right? But I don't think there's any intent on expanding that or creating another level of usable space up there. I think the notion is let's keep it as to sort of honor that historic look of that open cathedral type space. So I think that that's sort of where we're going.
Okay,
I have a question.
yes, Lynn.
So as far as, I don't know if the analysis will, engineer's analysis will cover this, maybe it will, the parking around it, parking would have to be in the rear doesn't appear, if I'm reading it correctly, that because in the front you would need, 200, it's 200 feet, but 100 feet would be acceptable, John, under 521 CMR, so under Arctic Transport.
Oh.
So you need 100 feet in the front, if that would be your handicap parking. So looking at the rotary, if I understand it right, we would go to the rear. Would we get any, not a we get a variance under that, but the owner of the property, the Thompsons, wouldn't we have to ask for, what do you call it? I have one on my property with.
Easement?
An easement. We get an easement to be able to use that property, because that's where you would put, you know, like an elevator or the handicap parking would be, so you would need an easement to
cross the Thompson's property.
cross the Thompson's property. So I wonder if is that all part of the scope of work is my question.
I would,
Michael?
Not within this.
I would think, right, the ADA, so this is a question I think for the board, and it's a good one. ADA accessibility is included, but I think that that's the building. I don't know that that includes parking, right? So the current scope of work doesn't include accessible parking. But like, I know we have the sort of shared parking and all that, so I know there's limited parking. But is there something that we would need to understand, like, could that get us hung up if we don't know? Like, all of a sudden they say, hey, you know what, you actually have to,
And can I
please.
tag on to that, Michael, you may know. If I'm correct, where the rotary or roundabout or whatever we want to call it, it would basically be, one of the curves would be right in front of Holy Angels. Am I correct? So I guess the question is would they allow use of that driveway in and out of the rotary right there?
Oh.
Is that allowed, or is it further?
So there's two entrances that I'm picturing, and
Okay.
it doesn't include I'll call it the extension of the road that, like, you know, that's.
Yeah.
There's the entrance that's right next to the municipal lot that goes kind of down the hill.
Yeah.
Into the grassed area, and then there's the entrance to what is essentially the Holy Angels parking lot, which is, you know, like a 10 by 10 pad or something, right? Just down.
Out front, or?
Down that very scary drop of a hill.
Yes.
And I wouldn't encourage anybody to use if they're visiting. But anyway, so those are the two entrances that I'm envisioning. And one of them is owned by and operated by the Thompson Block building. That one, I believe, with the most recent TIP plans, is showing as being maintained as an entrance for their lot. I don't believe that the entrance on the other side to the lake from the road,
Yeah.
left side, Holy Angels, I don't believe I think we're leaving that open too. I don't believe we're closing it.
They're not closing that
Yeah.
curb cut. I would, because this is work this is one of the nice things, okay? We have so many things that are going on, all these balls in the air. EDC is one of those balls. They're already evaluating the wetland, environmental constraints. And as part of the concept plans, they're looking at parking that goes across the Thompson Block and provides that rear access. I think the structural report, it's a separate document, just looks at that. It can rely and reference some of this other work, but that's part of, if the town completes the structural and you present an article, that's where I think all these things start coming together to really sort of, that's what the architect would also resolve.
Right.
Because we'd have to have those conversations with the Thompson Block to secure easements.
Mhm.
Any sort of access easement also benefits the Thompson Block because they have existing access issues now. So all these things, I see converging at some point. It's just not today, tomorrow.
See right here, that's the curb cut.
So phase two.
Exactly, yeah.
Phase two, get this core implemented.
Yeah.
Third part, this goes to people. And we gave you 20% of the drawings and all that.
That's right.
That's a factor in it. Just
Right.
like- And the TIP project being a factor, I think I was calling out the fact that downward slope. You get out of the kitchen, hold Girl Scouts and all that. It's not gonna be your 2% grade in any day of the week, and that's what it requires, so. I'm just putting that out there so everybody kind of
Yeah.
understands what you're looking at, what can be achieved and what can't.
That's right.
That's,
And so we have the luxury of having all these plans, so and they're all public, I just
Mm.
Googled this. But I can confirm that the way the rotary the roundabout is designed, and in this detailed plan, it shows Holy Angels and the curb cut for that parking, right, still exists. Now, I think we all know that slope, even if you said you're gonna put your handicap parking spots down there, probably isn't gonna fly, but I think that's outside the scope of the scope of work for this analysis. What we're
Right.
looking at is the structure of the building.
We'll have to solve it, but
That piece, sorry,
no, go ahead.
no,
No.
that parking piece would be part of, I think, that next detailed phase. So if we asked for 20% of the cost, $400,000 in the fall to do the detailed study, design, drawings, equipment, paint colors, kitchen appliances, figure out all that, the detailed drawings and design and interior architecture and all of that, that money would then include things like how do we integrate the parking and all of that.
And for those of us who are
Is that-
directionally challenged, which is me, the roundabout and the rotary are really over here. My concern was Holy Angels was gonna be on the circle, and it's not, it's beyond it.
Yeah.
So, at the moment, they could change it, but that's where it's further this way.
Yeah.
Mike, yes? Well, go ahead. Who wants to go first? You get out.
I just wanted to ask, Brett alluded to it, if we lose the vote, we get in the water, so is it possible to get that 9,000 from historic or CPC or something, so we don't have to do a vote now? And we maybe would have more time to put that together. And the other question is, can we get dehumidifiers in that building or air screwers? I know we're using the town hall.
There's no electricity.
There's no electricity. There's nothing, there's no heat.
Until
There's no
until you
electricity.
basically seal up the building, it's hard.
Yeah, and right now, the wind's just coming right through, believe me, it's dehumidifiers won't work because a small child or a skinny person, me in my younger days could crawl through one of the holes.
And
Wait a minute, my question on different funding?
So, because we're repurposing an existing article, again, funding is, still needs town meeting approval, even if
Okay.
we're adding 9,000, going to CPC would still be another, vote of town meeting. So,
Okay,
if we don't pass at town meeting, the board has other options that it could pursue. But I think this would be the best focus because,
Yeah.
our
I think-
majority is repurposing one existing.
and I think honestly, Lori, I think everybody wants to save the building. It's unfortunate we have to study it again, but the fact that we're repurposing some money and it's not gonna be a huge expense.
Mhm.
You know, hopefully they see we're being financially prudent and saying, okay, we came up with this idea, it didn't work, but we're gonna move this so that we all know where we are. Yes, Mike, you had a question?
Just getting back to, you alluded to it, I think we have an immediate threat right now. I think the board of selectmen need to figure out how to appropriate some money to secure the building.
Yes.
We talked about that, and we have to remove that oil tank.
Yes.
If that was an individual person, be written down their neck to remove that abandoned oil tank. Now, hope to God it's not rotted. If it is, you're gonna have a problem, with an environmental impact. So we own it, it's our responsibility. That tank, that oil tank, that building needs to be secured.
Mike, do you have,
Is that the original oil tank?
No, that's gone. It's
I hope not.
no.
do you have a rough, I mean, you deal with this all the time, do you have an idea of what it would cost us to get? You know, I think the immediate need, you're right, it's right there at our drinking
Yeah.
water.
I mean, it all depends on the environmental part of it. The first thing is to do is get a contract. And Joe and I have dealt with on another property, a reputable contractor to go in there that'll remove it. We also have two other locations we need to remove oil tanks from. They should be removed if it's town property, because the They've just been sitting there. These new tanks that we're seeing removed, I saw a 2017 tank the other day that was running through. Because of the amount of water content in the oil that we have today.
So I would,
That tank is showing 60% of what, I have no idea what's in there. But that's something that we need to do, secure that building. I do not like the fact that the service is still going over there, the poles, and bridge can cut the pole service to it. The electrical is a major electrical hazard within the building. If the power is still active to the meter, but we just don't need that power connected to that building. But,
Yeah, I think we
that's
don't
not, that, but it's, but we need to secure the building. That needs to be boarded up where we have to, double boarded up, on the downstairs of it, and that oil tank.
I mean, I think we should keep in mind too, right? Like, there is a plan in the spring, right? Like, that building is gonna get painted and cleaned up. And so, I mean, I think there's several things we've got to do. I think the town meeting vote for this $35,000 to do the structural analysis and sort of get the building set, like, that's one path. The second path is, to your point, the board may need to take immediate action to do things like deal with the oil tank, do whatever, work with DPW to get whatever boarded up, like whatever needs to get done to sort of maintain it, we need to do that. But obviously also the build, and so that's the second track. And then the third track is getting it painted, because we asked people to do that. They voted for it. It's been a year. We got to get that done because they're going to expect us to do it. So I think those are the sort of three things that we've got in motion that are separate but related.
The other major hazard that's there, that I brought up, showed it to John and I, and Laura looked at, is the ramp system is gone. It's a hazard. It's just basically bolted off. The wood that's there needs to be removed. You know, God forbid some kid jumped over that little short railing and fell over that, in that wood. That itself too is another hazard. So there's three things with that building that you need to get it boarded up, double board the outside windows, inside windows. There's voids in the foundation that need to be figured out and be blocked up. And then to keep as much rodents and stuff, you keep them going in there, and remove that tank.
Joe, I think the most urgent thing is the oil tank, because the potential for hazardous waste is enormous, and then the expense is phenomenal, which is not covered by anyone's insurance. You know, yes, Tom.
Brent, I've been listening to you, when you say we have to do the structural analysis. I think you want to say we need to update the structural analysis because of such and so and so and so and so and so.
Fair.
Somebody's gonna shoot right back at you and say.
We already did it. Yeah, we need to update this.
Yeah, people have
That's a good point.
offered us, you
Yeah.
know, the structural analysis
we
for
already did this.
19,
Yeah.
but I don't think they've understand conditions have,
Yeah.
conditions, laws, loads, everything is
It's a
changed.
very good point.
So
because the
we,
English
when
matters,
we,
so update
yes,
the
when we
structural
speak, we need to
Yeah.
say update.
So one track is updating the structural analysis. The second track is maintaining the building and taking care of buttoning it up and taking care of the oil tank and whatever we need to do to secure the envelope. And then the third track is. Great. Yes.
Does anybody have any other questions, comments? I think this is good. I think we've accomplished it. I want to thank everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Discussion, really good discussion.
And anyone who doesn't want to stay for our scintillating meeting, can head out.
Watch it online.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you, Michael.
Yeah. Okay, next, award of contract Pratt and Mill Pond Management Plan.
Okay, so within your packet is the contract for Pratt and Mill Pond Management Plan. This is the second phase that Lakes, Ponds and Streams had secured CPC funding back at a previous town meeting. The contract, sorry, so I'm just scrolling down to it. The committee has recommended the hiring of TRC to perform that management plan. TRC is currently doing the study. They had gotten two responses to requests for proposals. TRC again submitted, and they were deemed as the most qualified to undertake that work. You have the recommendation also from Lakes, Ponds, and Streams in your packet.
Okay, so they're looking for the cost of this contract. Will this be an article on town meeting?
No, they already received funding, $47,000.
They just need the approval.
Because it's at over 25,000, select board approval is required before I can sign it.
Even though it was already approved by town meeting,
Not the,
not the contract.
Not the contract, the
But
number. That's where,
The funding, that's.
Yes.
that's where I was confused.
Yeah, the funding's been approved by.
Yes.
Okay. Questions, comments from either my left or my right? No?
Nope, I would just say that's the process, right? The town, the voters authorized us to authorize Joe to spend this money.
Exactly. If we say it enough times, people might actually get it. Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move that the board vote to authorize the town manager to sign contractual documents associated with the hiring of a TRC to perform the Pratt and Mill Pond Management Plan.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next item, award of contract for the Fisk Ave reconstruction project. Mr. Westgate, I see you've been waiting patiently. Waited so long.
Go to sleep, Dennis?
I was, but you had to wake me up.
Dinner, having dinner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So recently, the town opened bids for the Fisk Ave project about a week and a half ago. We had a successful bid opening, a lot of participants. It was an excellent bid. In your packet, you have a recommendation from Wright Pierce that I condone. That includes awarding the contract to the lowest bidder, AF Amarillo, for the Fisk Ave project. So I ask the board respectfully to approve the town manager's ability to sign the contract.
Questions, comments?
Nope, we've talked about this.
You most certainly have. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote to award the contract for the reconstruction of Fisk Avenue to AF Amarillo and Sons, Inc. as recommended, and to authorize the town manager to sign the notice of award form as provided.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
I haven't heard that name in a long time, Amarillo.
I know, they have an exceptional reputation.
and through the, I'd like to ask Dennis to hold on because he and I didn't communicate about, the first item under select board discussion is the policy on mailboxes.
Ah,
So,
we'll pop down to number 6. Review and amendments to mailbox damage policy.
So I'll just first give an update. And we've had this winter was, tougher than what we've had in a while, granted. We're starting to see more ice type events and heavy moisture and heft that gets thrown about by our plows.
Yes.
And
That one storm was brutal.
Oh,
so we do have a policy that was adopted back in 2011. A copy of which is in the board's packet.
Right.
We reimburse the homeowners $20 for a post and $20 for a mailbox. And talking to Dennis, like this may be an opportunity just to update this. This isn't to replace in kind, and Dennis can sort of talk more about how this really operates. But it's really to get functionally, and there's different levels, different ornate styles that people may have or construction methods. This is only for specific standards. So
correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, it's basically for a basic mailbox post and box. It's not the granite, it's not fancy stuff. And as someone who replaced her post recently at a cost of $50 for the simple plain post,
Yeah.
and then drop the plastic sleeve over it. Yeah, $40 doesn't get you anywhere. Doesn't even get you the basic wooden post without the arm, just the post. But go ahead, Dennis, it's all yours. What's
So
your
it's,
recommendation?
It's, thank you for the chair. A lot of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth, believe it or not, don't do anything for their residents. They consider it to be par for the course when it comes to living in New England. Most of the people who have mailbox damage during a snowstorm think the plows hit the mailbox, when in fact, 90% of the damage that's done to the mailbox actually comes from the weight of the slush and the snow coming off the blade of the plow, especially if we get a heavy wet snow and 6 or better inches. By the time you get the roadway pushed over to the edge, your windrow can be 3-4 feet tall. And to get that snow off that blade, the trucks actually start to pick up a little more speed to shed that excess snow and get it off. And it impacts those mailboxes even harder. So the majority of it is done through snow. Some of it's not even done by us, but it's very difficult for us to argue that when we know we're out there on every street. We also know there are private contractors having private driveways plowed, and we know that they come in contact with them as well, but we don't argue it. In addition to it, some of these mailboxes are hanging on by a wing and a prayer as it is. I mean, some of them I've seen duct tape used on some of them, and so it wouldn't take much for us to knock them back. The bottom line is, I like the fact that Upton does something for their residents. In the communities that I have served in my prior life, there have been communities that did nothing, and there were communities that did something. We do something, but our something is rather old and antiquated, and it doesn't really keep up. And what it says right now, it says that we reimburse you. So if you have damage to your mailbox during a snowstorm, we accept responsibility for it. We tell you to go out and replace the post and the box or both, and bring us the receipt, and we will reimburse up to $20 for the post and up to $20 for the mailbox. And we all know that won't buy you a post and a mailbox today. $40 won't do it. I propose that we simplify it and combine them both, and let the residents, if they end up losing just the post because the post cracked, they can replace just the post. If the mailbox got broken off and they have to replace just the mailbox, then do that. But make it a one-time $60 and that's it. Up to $60. If they give us a receipt, up to $60, we'll reimburse them for that. And I think that's a lot closer to being accurate on what they're spending to fix their mailboxes.
I agree with Dennis.
Right?
Agreed.
Okay. There's, do we have a motion? Or-
So,
How do we do that?
what I can do is basically I can edit and then at the next meeting, just bring this back so you then just formally adopt that new policy.
That
Okay,
sounds good.
and I like the idea, Dennis, combining both the mailbox and the post, because
Yeah.
they are considered one. I mean, I
But
bought
some
the whole
people
plastic thing
have
all one off.
extravagant mailboxes, and I mean, we can't be expected to replace granite, mailboxes that they spent hundreds
know.
of dollars on. I get it, but
No, I think
that's
you
a
just
risk.
needed something to get your mail in,
Right. And through the chair, we're a kinder, more gentler DPW. If your mailbox is down and it's the middle of winter and there's frost in the ground, we'll go out there and make some kind of temporary arrangement so you can still get your mail, whether that
Right.
requires a 5-gallon pail bucket, but regardless, you're going to get your mail.
That's good to know.
How many of these requests do we get on the average year? Like 2 or 20?
No, more like 2.
Okay.
I
what I
would
figured.
say that the last year, this past year, probably maybe 3 or 4. On our worst winter that we've had since I've been here, maybe we got 6 or 8, but I don't think I've ever seen more than that.
Perfect. I was just
Thank
looking
you.
for a range. Thank you.
Okay, well, Dennis, while we're here, underneath 6B is Fisk Mill Road street sign request. Should you stick around for that?
I think you have a recommendation from the chief.
Okay.
And I'm in
Yes.
favor of it.
Okay, good to know. All right, if you would like, do we need Mr. Westgate for anything else? Is he free to go?
Yeah.
Unless you want to hang around, Dennis, we appreciate you staying here and joining us as always.
As much as I'd love to spend time with you, I think I hear my
I'm
pillow
sure have
calling.
better things to do. I hope people at home appreciate my sense of humor.
Enjoy your evening, sir.
Have a great evening,
Have a
Dennis.
good
Thanks
night.
for coming.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You do,
Okay.
Dennis.
So let's go, instead of moving forward, let's go backwards and finish up number 4, which would be the town manager report,
Yes.
because otherwise I'll get confused.
So you have a copy of this as well. So tomorrow night, DPW Building Committee is meeting. We're going to be taking a formal vote on selecting owner project manager for the DPW renovation expansion project. There was also some additional action items such as reorganizing. John Westerling, who is the chair and was the DPW director in Natick, formerly of Hopkinton, is now the DPW director in Worcester. And it's a little bit bigger town.
Just a space.
And so we're going to be reorganizing to select a new chair. He'll still be on the committee, but just wanted to hand it off, make sure that if he that the project can get the care and attention it needs. So we've had a bunch of meetings evaluating the FY26 budget. That process still continues. Next week, Finance Committee is meeting to start to go over and develop their recommendations, as well as capital budget is selecting meetings. The board was copied on an email today with a list of all the capital projects that capital budget will be meeting to discuss. Also, later on in the agenda, you have draft 7. This is pretty much the final version. It's in track changes town council has already reviewed, and we're getting in final numbers as some of the quotes and scopes of work come in. So we're on track for executing it at our April 1st meeting. Today, I attended a virtual Southeast Subregional Bicycle meeting hosted by Central Mass Regional Planning. Central Mass Regional Planning is currently doing their 2025 regional bike plan. So they were inquiring with towns, primarily in the Blackstone Valley, what bicycle and pedestrian priorities are of the town. I included an excerpt from the 2018 plan where Upton's priorities, whether or not Upton realized they were the priorities or not, that's a different question, because they included basically making 3 bicycle corridors. The high priority was Hartford Ave South North to High Street to Hopkinton. The second priority was basically 140 into Hopedale, and the third is basically Mendon Street down to Mendon. We did talk about, and they will include, various towns have talked about expanding sidewalk systems within village centers, which we also did, and talk with Dennis about updating our sidewalks for complete street. I included a link. CMRPC is looking for other people, residents, to provide feedback on what may be other bicycle systems that they may want to see in their community. So that link is available. Coming up in a week is going to be the Town Common Master Plan Streetscape Design Charrette. That's going to be Wednesday, March 26th here in the main hall, starting at 6:30. There are a set of plans that are available on the website, and it's under news announcements as well. Encourage people to look, some initial sort of talking points as far as landscaping, lighting we already talked about as far as TIP project, but also focus areas and starting reimagining how we want our common as well as the other green space in front of Racine to look, as well as how we'll interact with the TIP project. The Community Preservation Committee has a draft action plan. These were funds that were obtained back in the fall of 2023 to develop this action plan. The purpose of this plan will be to identify funding priorities, outlining application process for eligible projects. They don't have a date yet, but they will be scheduling a public hearing to solicit public input on that plan, and I'll let the board know when that happens. And also update from Michael Antonellis, the Affordable Housing Trust has been working with Central Mass as well to prepare the Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan. I believe a final draft was discussed at the last meeting in February, and this is again at the same fall town meeting in 2023. Funds were appropriated using CPA funds. And the purpose of this plan is to lay out strategic goals for the trust to accomplish and pursue affordable housing, and specifically lays out a 5-year action plan. I did ask Mike if he could, at the next Affordable Housing Trust meeting, talk with him about providing a presentation to the select board, since this is something that would be great to have a little bit exposure for the town. So,
Have we updated the master plan?
no, that's
2005 was the last time the master plan was updated.
yeah.
20 years.
Yep.
Doesn't seem like it. And twice we were having fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Sue?
No.
Appreciate it.
Just a
Yes, absolutely.
I just am noting on here the town common master planning and streetscape design charrette, and it talks about the green space adjacent to Racine.
Yes.
I think like. it's-
So in the front here, so with the TIP project,
but
they're gonna be
not-
making it.
I was thinking of that, I was thinking of the parking lot, right?
Oh, right.
So not where the telephone and telegraph building used to be. This is the green space, which is the,
Right.
yeah.
To get a
That's what
relationship
I just was
between
confused. I'm like,
that
we should call it
green
green
space.
space, we're making it a parking lot. Let's
I
call it
hope
something
we-
else.
We are gonna take those trees down in the common, aren't we? I'm surprised they haven't blown down in the window.
I think you need leaves on the trees to have the branches fall down. I think they're
Well,
very
one of them-
aerodynamic.
I'll
They
tell you,
really are.
one of them's a pine, and I only
Is
know
it?
this. Well, I think it's a pine. I think it used to have green things on it. One summer day, I was away on vacation, and my neighbor called me in a panic because a very large pine that used to be adjacent to my house went down. Thankfully, it went down towards my garden and not my house. And I said, did we have storms? Did we have winds? He said, no, I was mowing my lawn. I heard a thunk and it was gone. So I don't, and you know, it's Memorial Day. That's my deadline.
Yeah.
I don't want any of us taken out.
Yeah, as part of this, I mean, they have an assessment of the trees. There clearly are gonna be trees they're gonna recommend to have taken down. And also part of this will then to have a planting plan, that then we can implement.
Right, I think
Big
that's the key.
trees.
Before we start cutting
Yeah,
down, before we
Not
start
the
cutting
big
down
ones.
trees in the town common, let's have a plan to replace the
Yes.
trees or do some type of
Yes,
landscape design.
But we
yes,
do need
yeah.
to get the dead wood out before somebody
Yeah.
gets injured. We are now on to public input. Please step forward, state your name and address. That's the magic chair. I will warn you, when you sit down, it will take off backwards, so be careful.
Every time I sit down, I hit the back wall.
Well, Madam Chairman, I'm here representing the residents of Tyler and Chapin Road.
Okay, can we have your name and address for the record?
John Box, 16 Tyler.
Thank you.
It's been roughly 30 years since we got together and gave the town $80,000 to accept the road. And the road needs to be repaired. The frost heaves on Tyler Road are rather significant and doesn't even pass a closed coffee test going down that road. So I don't even drive up it anymore because I have a low profile car, a little bit low profile. I hate to take anything that's lower than that up it, but so that's the question that we get on the list for that road to be repaired. I talked to the UPW director that the road is officially listed as failed. So it's on the list and we just want to step forward and say we're looking to have it repaired. So I coordinated the raising of the 80,000.
Okay, that was many years ago when, I'm just not familiar with it.
The development failed.
Right. Okay.
So that's basically it. I would recommend also doing Pearl.
Oh, I live on Grove. It's not pretty.
If I just, sorry.
So go ahead.
No, I
Yes.
just asked the town manager when it's on, like, the DPW director, he's got a list of streets and I don't know how many years it goes out, but he sort of has purview over what's the most urgent, we're putting the dollars and all that. So I was just asking the town manager what the status was.
So it is on a list. It's not within the next 2 years for getting repaired or mill and overlay. There's other subdivisions that are also in similar or worse state of repair. And, you know, Dennis does a great job trying to get as many miles as possible. And, you know, his pavement assessment process keeps track of all the town roads, and he tries to make sure that things get done in an efficient manner. So he said it is on the list. It's not in the next couple years, but it's there, and he evaluates it annually. There are definitely some potholes that are starting to open up around some of the manhole covers that will absolutely be addressed. But I'd recommend continuing having that conversation with Dennis to get a better idea as far as timeline.
You told me that.
And Joe too, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a plan where we try to appropriate a certain number of dollars each year towards the roads. Am I correct, when we did the community center, we kind of moved money around? I remember Dennis saying, we're now back up to the full complement of dollars I need to repair the necessary repairs every year. It cut somewhere along the way, it got cut back because of other needs of the town. So we are now back on track with our road repair money. So hopefully, you know.
I'll tell my neighbors that. So.
Yeah, and it's a, we all know, drives me.
Some of the houses also have sidewalks.
Right.
Okay, from 0 to 6, have sidewalk. The rest of the development was supposed to have sidewalks, but that was part of the development failure, I guess.
Right.
One recommendation to, I don't know, does the church have insurance?
It's under the town.
It's the town owns it.
Okay, so there's a rider. I happen to have a good friend he retired, was head of the groundwater remediation people in the state. So the last time I talked to him, he says, it's just a simple rider, call up your insurance company. That was it.
Yeah.
Because if you
Oil tanks, no, right?
right in place.
They won't issue a rider right now because the oil tank has to be in
Oh, this oil tank. Oh.
oil pristine condition in order for them your insurance company to issue a rider in case of any leakage. They come out and inspect it. The fire department has to say it's viable, it's in good shape, and our fire department is saying
It's not.
60%.
We'll take the chance.
no, so they would not insure us. But everybody, you're right.
This happened fast. So.
Yes, I know what the costs are. Thank you for coming in and spending the
Thank
time.
you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we are now on to
One more.
oh,
One more what?
Public.
oh, good job.
Public.
Tom, I thought you were enjoying yourself.
Last time I came in, you try to cut me off too.
That's right, I'm sorry. All right, next time I see you, you'll come first. How's that? And I'll keep my mouth shut, which is very hard for me to
Well,
do.
It's not like I come often, and I try not to come for trivial things, but
Right.
this might be borderline. I want to talk about Heritage Day. Heritage Day has been celebrated here for somewhere around 50 years or so. It's been around a long time. The concept of it and what went on has changed over the years. It used to be considered Heritage Homecoming, when they tried to get all the residents who had moved away to come back and have a big, celebration and everything. But it's changed a lot since then, as you all know. But the townspeople really enjoy what we do today, and it's well attended. And I think it's one of the biggest town events that we have. The participants, the United Parish is involved, the VFW, the Grange, the library, the fire department. And of course, the Historical Society has the craft fair. So there's a lot going on. And last year at the United Parish, they had a choral concert, which was something new. And I think there's potential to add more things, more concerts, more music, sports events. They used to have baseball games between the fire department, the police department, and the select board, things like
I
that.
remember the one with the Bloomer Girls in the fire department.
Yeah.
I've heard stories about that.
Yep.
Houses.
And more games for children. And so
hit the ball.
so a lot could be done with this. Over all of these years, all the years, I've been involved with the Historical Society since around 93, I suppose. So I've been with it for a while. Historical Society has done the overall coordination of everything that goes on. We've taken care of the publicity and the signage and all of that, as well as doing the craft fair. We have to get all these vendors and people to sign up. And the craft fair, those that are selling stuff, they pay a fee. But all the nonprofits that come in there, we don't charge them anything. The town, Friends of the State Force and all, that's all free for them. And we still like to do it that way. But the size of the event and the amount of effort that it takes is taxing our resources at the Historical Society. It's getting to be too big of a job to do the craft fair and coordinate everything and the publicity and all. So I would like the select board to consider establishing a Heritage Day committee and getting members from the whole town. Was that your reaction to?
No, that was me writing the important thing down.
To establish a committee to assume the overall coordination and the publicity of the annual event. And then whatever growth could take place, would be organized in them. I mean, we've got space behind the Risky building that could be set up down in the VFW ballroom and so forth. So that would take a load off, and the society could still run the craft fair on the common. And I think that's an avenue to grow the whole activity. And if you've been there, there's something for everybody, and people come to socialize, and I think it's a great day for the town. So I really sincerely hope that the board would.
Would you be looking to try to get this committee up and running for this fall, or might be a bit difficult? We can put a call out for volunteers.
Yeah.
Knowing what you do each year, you'd have to train.
Yes, I mean,
And
if you could get the ball rolling and get some people, then I would be on the committee. I would take a place there, and I would get them involved this year, even if you had some, and get them trained and so forth as to what goes on, and get it going, and then more people could be added as the opportunity presented.
So I think it's a great idea. I know it's become overwhelming. And I know as a member of the Bloomer Girl, I know what it takes to put our hair on each year. We start in February.
Yeah.
And, we have a lot of crossover, and,
We start our craft fair work in May. Sending out invitations for people for the craft fair. And the coordination, there isn't a lot that changes from year to year. All the groups kind of fit right in, but, just to get them working together and talking about publicity and so forth. And signage and so forth. We probably could use some new signs, the road signs we put out and so forth. So.
Questions, comments?
How big a committee would you be looking for? 5, 7, 9?
I would think 3 or 4.
Yeah,
Yeah, small.
I would think 3 or 4, and then lots of volunteers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe, do you know what it takes? I'm sure you know exactly what it takes.
I can pull together some ideas to
Okay.
discuss.
We can put that on.
Some
the-
towns have like formal, create a committee that then, then is in charge of some of these.
Particular town event, yeah.
I mean, some towns will just have it as a Memorial Day committee. Here, VFW coordinates a lot of sort of our
Mhm.
veterans, but something like this, it's a little bit more, has a broader reach. There's a level of like volunteerism that would definitely, I think there would be
Like, I
people that would be interested.
I wonder too, like, what about like the cultural council or like some existing committees that might be interested in helping support a town event, right? I don't know. I'm just wondering, right? Like, could we, right? Cause I feel like it's a townwide activity. So that sort of fits under the purview of a sort of cultural activity. I wonder, we
And
could
even
approach them and
EDC.
say, hey, are you interested or could you take over or help out with this as part of your charge and see if they might be able to do it? That might, just because my fear is that we create a committee and then we can't recruit people to do it. Well, you need the people. You need people to help you. So I'm trying to think of the easiest way to
Well,
find
maybe
people to
we
help.
should reach out, economic development, technically, it brings a lot of business downtown that day. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of foot traffic.
That's another option.
And it doesn't have to necessarily be constrained to Heritage Day. You've got Memorial
Right.
Day and you've got other. So maybe the committee or the core of the committee could be looking at all of these things
Right, maybe
here.
Brett may have hit the nail on the head. It's very hard. Sometimes we advertise for committees and we don't get bodies. So maybe, I know we have some younger people on cultural and
I mean,
different things. So maybe if we can reach out to them and say, hey, would you guys be interested in helping? Because I know cultural is always at Heritage Day.
yeah, exactly.
And maybe they have some younger volunteers, or maybe we reach out to EDC because we have some young people that have just joined that. And if we combine the two of them and say, okay, put your heads together, and right now it's an informal committee, and then.
Because I was even thinking, the other thing I was thinking is the men's club, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, just an ask, right? Because they run the fireworks. It's a huge thing. Everybody's at capacity, but it's a place where there are volunteers, and this is a light enough lift that maybe we could say, hey, do you guys do you guys have capacity to get a couple of volunteers to help out? They might say, go pound sand. We can't deal with the projects we've got, but
Right, right.
we can ask. So maybe
Yeah,
we
right.
ask a few places to try to.
Yeah. And
And
then,
part of it is also just probably sitting down with Tom, like, what are, in broad strokes,
yeah,
what are the basic coordination things that happen? I know I get an email from Tom every year, like,
Right.
who wants to
Right,
take,
he's
you
got
need to
the
let
list.
me know, here's all this stuff.
yeah,
Then the map and mapping things
That's
out,
right.
there's that
That's right.
component.
That's right.
yeah.
But then there may be other things that,
Right.
as a observer and as a table,
Right,
I may not notice that he and the Historical Society
Have been doing.
right.
right. Yeah, okay, I think we're gonna put that on our list of things to do, and,
Get you some help,
yeah, we'll get you some help.
one way or the other.
Okay.
I think it's great. We appreciate you coming in and,
I appreciate.
well, yeah,
A lot of work.
yeah, and, I think the men's club really might,
They might.
I think,
There might be people.
young.
That's what I mean, like these places, because this is like, we want to get new people into the system, and this is a great way to do it, where you've got something that's already running. You've got an expert that can be like, here's the recipe, here's how you do it, go
Right.
run the play.
Yeah.
I'll help you for
Yeah.
a couple of years, and then you can take it over, and it's not so
Yeah,
complicated. for
And
them
you're
to,
right, Brett, the men's club are used to coordinating large events and putting people in place and.
Exactly, forming.
Yeah, and they
committees or
may say, hey, you
subcommittees.
know what, while we're doing it, let's
That's right.
take the grass area that was the telephone building
That's
and
right.
put 3 food trucks there.
That's exactly.
You know,
That's right.
um,
Like, hey,
because
let's talk to
that's what
Rushford
they
and do
do,
this, or
and-
let's do this, or let's get
Exactly.
other vendors involved, and now we can talk to them.
All right.
There's all sorts of,
Are you still involved with the men's club?
little bit. I
Okay,
would say,
well,
I'm
I'm gonna-
a member and on the periphery, but I definitely can text them and
If you
I
can
can
text
ask
them
them
and
and just
see-
say, hey,
Let's start
Can
with the men's club.
I'll take that as a.
Lots of
takeaway.
volunteers, and then you can
Yeah.
delegate. I love to delegate. Delegate, learn how to
Delegate.
delegate. Okay, you're gonna send out all the emails. You're in charge of advertising. This is what I do. Who's gonna take this step? And you just sit back and
Yeah.
make sure all the balls are in the air.
I'm just the opposite. I just,
Yeah.
try to do it all myself.
Yeah,
Done, exactly. That's what we're trying.
it's, yeah, so if
We need
you
somebody to
can
shadow you.
step back and have somebody shadow you and have somebody, we need the right person to pick your brain and say, okay, what do I do next? You tell me, we'll get it done.
It's so well attended. It's getting
It is.
huge and
It's getting
too much for
enormous.
Few people to take on all that responsibility. You need help.
And it's good ideas for it down to the ball fields and, further into the VFW.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. I thought you were
And
just
she
hanging
won't
around 'cause you
overlook
missed
you
us.
the next time, Tom.
You'll be first.
I'll put a note on the-
Yeah. Laura. Thanks. It was good seeing you. Thanks for coming. You can still hang around if you want.
You want me to turn the lights off too?
No, thank you very much. I'm just dying to get to that Fisk Ave Street sign. Okay, next, street sign request. On Fisk Ave. Fisk
So-
Mill, excuse me, 55 Fisk Mill.
So,
Yeah,
Chief Keller did agree that, it may be a good location for a sign.
Mhm.
As you're coming from 140 out of Hopedale and Milford, coming up on Fisk Mill, it's straight. People can go faster.
that was a quarter mile when we were kids.
The easy part about this, and this Dennis and I were talking about it today, was this is the law now.
This is the law, and I don't think a lot of people, and I think once we put a sign there, we're gonna get requests for more.
That's ultimately where I was going with this, is that I want to sort of sit down with Dennis and identify, one, what is the cost basis? And what would be a plan to start putting things up? I've started to see them in some of the adjacent communities.
Yes.
And especially now that you have areas where there are bicyclists, or at least the pavement is striped for it. Whether or not they're actually there, that's a different question. But the law is not only bicycles, but it's also pedestrians, it's trucks, and it's also horses. So the main thing is picking out what is the sign that's going to be appropriate, and what is then going to be an implementation plan, because it will take a little bit of time, man hours in order to achieve. So our recommendation would be to approve it, and we can use this as a initial implementation. But really the idea would be to be then developing a plan and putting it elsewhere within the community as well.
I mean, I walk and I'm not the only one. There are a tremendous amount of people that walk up and down Grove Street.
Yeah.
And it never ceases to amaze me that as I'm walking up Grove Street and you're on the very edge because you're against mailboxes or something, and somebody's coming at you and it's like they think the yellow line is a wall. And they can't, they are right there. And there are places there is nowhere to get off. And they don't move over.
So we need to review
Christian
the
Hill.
standardization manuals as far as
Okay.
signage, identify
Mhm.
how many, how far, how to do that. Here, I think it's going to be a set, easy, sort of within this area, it makes sense as well.
Right.
But, I think this would be the first of sort of a gradual rollout around town.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
No.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote to approve the installation of a motorist give 4 feet to pass sign on Fisk Mill Road between Christian Hill and Tyler Road.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, so we need to review amendments and new draft article.
So, I printed out draft 7 and it's still in track changes. There were some dollar figures that compared to draft 6 that was in the packet that now are updated, but majority of it is still the same. So there are a couple articles that, in talking to Dennis, we're recommending remove. And those end up being The lights at Leland Field, the reason for that is that we're hoping to be working with the vendor who is doing our streetlight conversion. We may be able to access grants because they actually had done the light installation 20 years ago. So the dollar figure we had may be grossly high. And so that's not so pressing that we need to get it done at this town meeting. So recommend pulling that off. The other thing.
Is that the 70,000 that they first implemented the lights? 70?
That was a different.
It said Leland.
Right, that was basically reconfiguration of the fields up there through CPC. It wasn't for the lighting.
Okay.
So, the other one to be removed because we put the ambulance on. The fire chief said we can push off a year or two the brush truck.
Okay.
So that's removed. You have in track changes language that now is revised from Mendon Upton Regional School District, basically referencing in track changes as an insertion, language referencing debt exclusion for the roof replacement, for capital improvement, and a new article that basically divides out the athletic field. So you see that all as new language, just specifically about the athletic field.
Mm-hmm.
The end of last week, I was in communication with not only Mendon Upton personnel, but then also with the Mendon town administrator. Because both of our boards are meeting at the same time within days, and CPC meetings are occurring as well. The thought is at this town meeting, rather than trying to figure out how to make this into a CPC article, to go forward with it and it's in the state that is proposed here. If it passes, all this is basically giving is authorization. At a fall town meeting, we can then decide how we pay for it and what that, say, contribution from CPC or other funds are.
Is there going to be a number in here somewhere?
There's no number yet, perhaps in the motion, but right now they don't have those numbers. So that's where that's there's.
I thought it was the $10 million. They had the budget. If it's like $10 million for capital, $10 million for the roof, $10 million for the fields.
So the hope is that for our
like
April
people are going to be like, "What are you
meeting,
talking about? What am I even approving if there's no number?"
It's
one, I'm in 100% agreement
it's not gonna fly.
that we have basically
So what
one
happens
more
if they
meeting.
had a plan and now they're changing the plan? And are they changing the plan because the town's finance committees told them to change the plan, or
No, that
what's the strategy?
Mendon basically said, we want these as separate articles. Don't come with the roof, they'll have.
Right, but separate articles that don't have numbers, like I don't understand what's that strategy?
They're still working on the numbers. They were supposed to get me numbers the end of last week.
Will there be numbers
Right, is
inserted?
their intent to have
Intent
numbers?
is to have numbers.
That's my question.
Okay.
And that
If there
will
are
probably
not
show up.
If there are
before
not
the-
numbers, this will be dead in the water.
Yes.
When
So
do
as long
we
as they
have
know.
to have the questions for the debt exclusions? We
April
better have it
1st.
by then.
April 1st.
TikTok?
So within the debt exclusion, we don't need to have the dollar amount, but it needs to be within the article. BVT did the same thing. But we have one more meeting.
People will misinterpret this and think they're authorizing a blank check, and nobody's gonna do that.
I don't think you're gonna have or finance committee recommending.
I mean, I don't even know what, I would have most abstain. I don't even know what it means. What even this.
I'm not reading it. You reading it? You reading it? No. Joe, you might be reading that one.
Whatever. Let's.
Yes.
They know they need numbers.
I'm gonna say, let's assume the numbers will get in here. Fantastic, great.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
agree with 3 different articles. I think it's great because I think some people want to do different things. So I think giving the voters the option for the roof, the maintenance and the fields as three different things is perfectly reasonable. And they understand they need to get numbers on them. Fantastic. I'll assume all good intent and we'll just get the three numbers and it'll be great.
Tomorrow night, because it is a public meeting, the capital subcommittee, as well as there is now a building committee, is meeting at 6 o'clock at Nemaug High School for sort of their first sit down. Putting aside time, timing just huge question. I'm hoping that means that there's going to be numbers that are being presented to that then after that meeting, I'll be receiving, and of course, I'll send that out. But we've all been around the town meeting block a few times. This is going to be a challenge. The only one that probably is going to have a higher success is going to be the roof, but that even needs numbers, and we don't have a number yet. And they were just assigned because they don't choose it. They were assigned an OPM a week and a half ago. So there's a lot of things that need to happen. It's not a lot.
And I don't know that these need to be exact numbers, right? We're not saying, at least in my opinion, right? Like the athletic feels like we've seen the estimates. They exist. So I assume that's the number. And we can say it's plus or minus or not to exceed or whatever we say, but like, we're not asking them to make up new numbers. We're at, like these numbers were all in the original estimates.
The numbers were within the estimates that Mendon Upton Community Project provided.
Yeah.
And are based on sort of their estimating process. Mendon Upton School District was taking that work and having their engineers, their consultants refine the numbers.
Yeah.
Provide a little bit.
Yeah.
To try to narrow it down to sharpen the pencil.
Yeah.
And that's where there's the delay, because we all know it's basically 10, 10, and 10.
Right.
Right. That's what's in my brain is
Yeah.
range, maybe it's 9, 11 and 8, like, but that's right. Like, so generally we're there. We've got to be able to give the people something.
No, and I've been straightforward with the district that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all
Okay.
on,
Yeah,
I think
and you
everyone
are
in
too.
this
Like, I know
room is
we
on
all-
the same page,
we-
like
we
it's
know.
mind blowing.
Yeah.
They know our deadlines. They know when, and our town meeting being May 1st, Mendon's is May 2nd. It's not like they're like the middle.
It's literally
Usually
Thursday and
it's a
Friday. It's like Thursday and Friday, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
just
So it's not like,
lots happening in those few days.
so.
Hi.
For what it's worth, side note, I talked to a few parents of athletes who were like, what do you mean there's a vote for Fields? I was like, oh, I guess the advertising's not working that great.
Wow, especially if they're athletes. Hello.
I was like, oh, you haven't heard about that? Aren't you on the Upton, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, it doesn't show up in my feed. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know how that works.
So, and we see a lot of it, like, well, where was I don't know, I was cruising around the internet the other day and somebody goes, well, how was I supposed to know there's a town meeting? I thought,
Mhm. Yeah.
we can't knock on your door. We
So
can't,
hard.
we try, we can't.
So spread the word. Tell as many people as you
Okay.
can. There's a meeting May 1st in Upton and May 2nd in Mendon.
And that is where we spend all of our money, people, not us, you.
And even if it passes in Upton, it might not pass in
And
Mendon,
Mendon-
Right.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
because
Right,
they are
and they're going forward
And
with the
different pieces
community
of it,
center
like
too.
it's- Yeah. I know, I was keep hitting them, I guess.
We're not on that board, thank God.
Hey, good luck to them, more power to them, all the respect in the world.
Yep.
So this was just to review the next item on the agenda. We had Paul Flaherty had presented some material on
senior tax credits.
correct. And there was one that involved accepting Mass General Law Chapter 6030D that then, 3D, that then creates basically the ability to have this special fund for elderly and disabled for the purpose of defraying the real estate taxes. You first have to accept this provision to then receive donations and things. This would be the only thing out of all those things that were discussed. Everything else I think is over the summer meeting with Board of Assessors,
Right.
trying to figure things out. This was the one out of all those. I put together an article in case you wanted to consider it.
You know,
It's adopting a provision. It's not actually creating it, because then the select board creates the committee that then would evaluate, and this is to receive donations, and
It's no cost to anybody. We're
Correct.
not adding taxes. We're not saying anyone's gotta pay for it. We're
it-
saying
it's a donation.
in the
It may-
future, at some point, we've created a mechanism by which we can use this tool.
And,
It's
and,
putting a tool in the toolbox.
Exactly.
right,
Doesn't cost
right.
anyone
And we
anything.
may find someone that, was generous like Harvey and leaves his estate to this fund,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly right.
yeah.
Never know.
And we had this committee in Littleton, and you had some annual corporate donations from some of the banks that then
Right.
at least,
Okay,
yeah,
well,
they received. So
okay, do I hear a motion on this one?
Do we, how I see it in here?
You want my,
It's Brett's turn.
Yeah, I move that the board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10, to reopen the warrant for the Thursday, May 1st, 2025 annual town meeting to amend articles as presented and proposed and to immediately close said warrant.
So that's to accept the track changes version of these, because we have dollar figures.
right, okay,
And
Yes.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
So they haven't got their figures together, but they're putting this out there.
that was from the March 10th budget hearing. So,
I wouldn't put any out there unless I had pretty standard.
I don't think, it's not referenced within it. That's gonna be the operational budget. It's worth looking in because they do address sort of the structural deficit that they're dealing with, where they're balancing with their equivalent free cash.
Right, and coming back next year for a 2.5 override.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the other thing we need to forecast for folks. I mean, at least I believe in. don't know
I
how
believe
they
in
do
giving
that.
them a heads up.
It's like, I almost like, and I don't know if it's our place to say it, if someone else does it, but it's like, maybe it's Kenny, like, over the next 2 years, these are the things that you're gonna be asked to pay for, asked whether or not you want to pay for. Fields, school maintenance, roof, Holy Angels, DPW.
Police station.
I mean,
You
well,
know?
those are, I think that's further down the road, but I think like we're
we should-
we're imminently discussing a DPW,
Yeah.
Holy Angels, and these 3 articles.
That's
So
right,
think
and
we-
I don't.
Oh,
think-
and a 2.5 override. Sorry, that was the other thing I wanted to mention.
Just in case.
And a 2.5 override. I think
yeah.
we need to say that to people, but that's just me.
I think you're right. I think that's the problem is, okay, we know, obviously, I've heard people watch us later on, but very few people are involved. And we know historically, they go to town meeting for one
That's right.
article that
And-
interests
right.
them.
And it becomes.
But I
benefit
don't
housing.
think they realize that we are trying to manage a budget, like you manage a household budget. And as we're managing your household budget and you look up and your roof is leaking,
Yeah.
you add that and then your refrigerator lets go. And this is kind of where we're at. I don't think people realize.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it was kind of alarming. I took my husband to the barber shop the other day and I was the only female sitting there, so I kept my mouth shut, but 4 or 5 young barbers all going, I don't know why we pay real estate taxes. This is crazy. And I thought, I don't know, do you like and I was, I
You
was
must have
like,
been like,
I was like, okay. I could be all of their grandmothers and now they're like, I just don't understand it. We bought the house. What do we have to pay the taxes for? And I thought, I don't know, you ever want to call the police? Do you like to drive on your roads? What if your house catches fire? And then I thought, my mother-in-law used to live in a place where, you pay the fire department to come each year. And literally, she told me that if you don't pay, they show up and go, oh, you didn't pay your invoice, and they watch you burn.
this would be fire insurance. That's how it all started.
Yeah, it's amazing that people don't understand this. But you're right, we should do
Big picture.
a better job of a
There
big
should be
picture.
probably a workshop that involves finance committee,
Mhm.
staff
Capital.
management, looking at projecting like all these things because,
Mhm.
you know, we had a very good discussion on a building that is worth saving.
Yes.
That building, you know, it all can't be on the taxpayers, but there also are other avenues that we can go after.
Right.
It's about identifying all those sources.
Right.
So, you know, and
there's people
including,
with different-
so it's
Different
making
expertise.
sure people know all these things are on the
Yeah.
horizon. Because people, unless you have an open house down at DPW, people don't know. I mean, you look from the street, hey,
It
they
looks
have
great.
they have a building, so they must be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Take a
But,
tour,
yeah.
take a tour.
Yeah, but I
Wouldn't
think,
take long
Check
to
out
go to the
Dennis's
trail.
office in the middle of the winter.
yeah,
See.
or the summer, the one
Yeah,
next
or the summer.
100 degrees.
Yes,
can
before
always
it's
put on
on
the
air
sweater.
conditioner.
Yeah, go see Dennis when it's 100 degrees out and he's sitting in a,
He's here at town
can.
hall.
yeah.
Last year he brought his own air conditioner.
That's.
I still don't know how he got it in the window because I said, oh, a floor model. He goes, so I put it in the window. I'm like, you're in a trailer. The window is like a half-inch thick. How did you not?
How did it not lean over?
Yeah, the whole thing. Well, I was thinking of Dennis when Mike Marchand was saying, I'd hate to put a level,
Mhm.
you know, but yeah, we had a great meeting tonight and I hope people watch what it's gonna take because it needs to be preserved. Everyone in town wants
We all
it
want the same
preserved.
thing.
That's why we agreed to paint it.
Yeah.
But we all need to understand that it's a huge undertaking, but like some of the reason I asked Dan Lazar is, you know, he does this, this is what his company does, and he knows about these grants and projects, and, you know, he was rattling them off like this.
And all of those different funding mechanisms just really can help alleviate some of the tax burden.
Definitely, we need to,
And-
we can't
and I
keep adding to
also-
the tax
And part of
burden.
the reason I think it's important to talk to the voters about it and all these different things is when you look at it, it's a huge project, but huge is like, I don't know, $2 million. Maybe it's more. It was 1.5 in 2019. Even if it's $3 million, right? When the voters are considering $10 million for a field,
Right,
they've got to recognize that they've got a historic building that, yes, it's a big project, but compared to $10 million, $2 million is 20% of that. So you can preserve it, right? So there's just like those kinds of concepts I think people need to understand and just vote with information.
yes,
Everybody has a different opinion about that, but let them know that you've got a $2 million project here, a $10 million project here. The DPW is going to be X number of millions of dollars, and they're all relative in size and value, and that's what they've got to
We
sort
do.
out.
We
Like you
should-
said, Jamie, you can get energy credits for Angels, tax credits,
Yeah.
federal money.
That's right.
and
the same
Lynn
is true for
said
the
there's,
fields. You can get
there's,
donations for the fields, and they could
Right.
get it sponsored. They could sell naming rights. They could do all sorts of
and
ways.
Lynn has said too, there's, you know, credits and grants to bring us up.
Totally.
Yeah, there's
So-
all kinds of ADA grants and.
Yeah, we just need to. All right, well, in our spare time, we need to schedule another workshop and really get everybody together and figure out how to get these numbers and this info out to the public, because they do need to know.
But we can't do that until we get the numbers from the school. I mean, you want them all.
I'm thinking.
No, I'm
it's
thinking just in
after-
general, like,
it's
hey, after town meeting,
After the
We'll-
election,
we'll-
sort of like state of the town, like, you know, this is almost like taking that multi-board saying, bring everyone together, because you're gonna have the people that, well, historic preservation, recreation, open space, you're gonna have those people as well. And this is a large community discussion.
and you know,
really
it's something we don't,
Focusing on direction.
right, and something we don't think about too is like, I don't know if it was open space or who came in and said, hey, you know, we have volunteers fixing our trail, we want to hire an intern because we're all getting older, we can't do it anymore, which is why Tom was here. You know, hey, I can't
People need help.
keep doing it, we need some help, and you're right, get
It's
the men's
always
club,
the
get
same
them.
people.
It is, which,
But,
good idea, not a committee, but maybe the men's club.
well,
And
that's,
maybe
he
that
came
would
in to
spark-
ask me that question, like,
Yeah.
you really need to talk to the board.
Yeah.
Because this is much larger than me saying, okay, let's look at reallocating staff resources
Oh,
because.
yeah, no, you can't do
You know,
that. It
that-
can't be staff resources. No, that's
No,
like,
that's gotta
We're
be.
doing
filtered
budget
down.
cuts, can't be
Right.
doing staff resources, but no,
we can't
I
staff
think-
that kind of stuff. Like, it's
no,
just-
but I think, you know, honestly, if we can reach out to the men's club,
That's right.
you know, then they might think, hey, you know what? This kind of sparked my interest and I want to get more involved with the town.
Yeah.
You know, let's use it as a feeder program for volunteers and elected officials.
It's well attended.
It's
It is.
I
extremely.
mean, it's a great thing every year.
Oh, everybody, and people do come back.
And it can be even greater, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
thing, if you put new energy into it and get new ideas, and
Exactly.
get more people into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be a super fun thing that someone just gets passionate about.
All right, so the only last thing
So-
we have is approval.
Yes and no,
Questions?
we still had the questions. So
Pose
Oh,
questions.
sorry.
Yeah.
we have until April 1st. So the board could not vote to place these on the annual election ballot, and then we can amend it on the 1st. Or at least I wanted to make sure you knew what was out there, because at the very least, we have the roof and we have the cemetery commission. The other two, you know, these are questions that Mendon Upton is asking at putting on the ballot. I don't
I
know.
thought we
to
said
what
we might not
extent.
keep them for, depending upon how we might fund like the fields if we use.
The fields, we're not gonna be able to, now, the idea would be to have these on,
Yeah,
and if it passes in the fall, just because you get authorization to have, say, the fields funded by a debt exclusion, doesn't mean you need to fund it
No,
outside the levy. We could always choose, okay, it passed, but we're still gonna either do it inside the levy, or we're gonna use CPC funds. We don't have to make a decision to use CPC funds.
no, I guess my
That-
point is, if we're gonna use CPC funds, we wouldn't need the ballot question.
no,
Is
But
that,
we won't know that,
right,
Until after meeting?
right?
right.
So this, Mendon Upton is asking for that these be placed on.
okay, so they want it this
They
way
want it
because
on.
they're not positive they can get CPC funding, so they'd rather be safe than sorry and put the question out to the voters.
Correct, at least, well, the thought is.
Okay, but
and
if
this
it,
is
if
this
it
is
doesn't
fair-
pass here, then what happens? Can we still fund it through CPC funds? If it
Yeah,
doesn't pass
yeah.
on this?
At the fall.
So in talking to the Mendon Town Administrator,
Like if
that's
this-
exactly like the strategy that we both talked. People
Yeah.
really believed in the fields, and that CPC funding was the way forward, and their CPC supports the project.
Yeah.
It's just, we don't have enough time to analyze what is eligible and not, determine,
Right, what the numbers are and all that.
we
to
just
be
don't
certain.
have the runway.
So I guess that was my question. I wanted to make sure that putting this question out there, if this question doesn't pass, somehow we're killing it, even though we could have funded it with CPC. As long as,
This would-
if this doesn't pass, if this question
It's not
fails,
dead, correct?
it's not dead, we could, it just means that it's not gonna get funded this way, but it still could get funded through CPC or some other
Both
mechanism.
towns would have to have it on their special town meetings in the fall.
Right,
With the different funding.
with the
source.
different funding sources.
The
Okay.
other capital improvement,
So that's fine.
the other capital improvement, that
Great.
I think is also gonna have a challenge.
Yeah,
Everyone will understand the roof. The other one, I think that's gonna have, and that we may not see for, if it doesn't pass, we may not see that for a year or two or three.
Mm.
Or they try to do something else to take the worst of those capital items, but
I think they'd like to start, I think they'd like to start with that instead of the whole thing. That's a hard sell. That's a really hard sell.
so.
they don't seem to be cohesive with their sales pitch.
Hey, we serve the people, and if we ask the questions, they will answer them.
That's right. I have,
mean,
you know, my theory has always been, what we should be doing is put it in front of the voters. I don't think
It's,
the three of us should decide, yes, we should put this on, no, we shouldn't.
I just,
Throw it on,
right,
let them decide.
it's a lot, they can handle it. If they have questions, we'll answer them.
Exactly.
And the board knows, like, I've been putting this on the board's radar for the last year and a half.
Yes.
This isn't,
Yes.
this is a surprise.
Yes.
None of this is a surprise to us, it's gonna be a surprise to everybody else.
But I-
because
Which goes back to your
nobody-
earlier
Nobody
statement.
knows what's
Yeah.
I
going
think one
on.
of the benefits is especially now, Jeremy, Amanda, and Maureen, and with the district and myself, we meet quarterly. The level of communication that we have is better than how it had been with their past town administrator. Not meaning anything by that.
Just different.
Just it's different. Just wish like this was October,
Yes.
not March. But timing,
That's okay. We can fix it next year.
exactly.
Okay. So do I hear a motion? Which would be 6E as an elephant. And it's on my laptop if anyone needs it.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's D. We need E,
I
right?
move that the
No,
board
E-
vote
E is-
pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10, to submit the proposed questions for the 2025 annual town election warrant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
So, and if we have amendments, I'll have that on for the first. This at least gets.
Right, so the
it needs to
placeholder
start
things,
to
so-
format things.
Yeah, exactly.
She has to then send things off like April 3rd.
Yeah.
So I also wanted her to have time.
Yeah.
That works. Okay.
Um,
Did everyone review the minutes?
Yep.
Me too. They were perfect. She's not here to hear me say it.
I know.
I am so disappointed, Sue.
She'll be
You'll
reviewing the tape.
Sue, it's spectacular. It passed the crazy woman's litmus test. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the board vote to approve the wonderful regular minutes of March 4th, 2025.
A hearty second.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
8:08. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. 8:08, we've adjourned.